let's go ahead and jump right into it. So multi-jurisdictional estate planning, what is that? Can you define that for us?
Yeah, so I don't know if there is a pure definition. Someone recently described, I was actually having a conversation with someone telling them about, our practice, what we do. And they are the one who said, oh, so you do multi-jurisdictional estate planning. And I thought, yeah, I guess that's right. I hadn't thought about it in those specific terms, but kind of the best way to describe it is to give you an example. So we're located in Houston, Texas. We also have an office in Louisville, Kentucky, but let's just say mom and dad are located in Texas and they have a child who is in California, maybe another child in New York, maybe another child in, say, Florida. Maybe they have business interests throughout the country. They have real estate in different states. And so there's different things that are coming into play here, right? So you technically could do all of the planning where mom and dad are located, but that may not be the most advantageous. So if you remember, I said we focus on asset protection and tax planning. So we're going to go and we're going to look at the laws in these other states to figure out what's most advantageous for the family, for the beneficiaries, for the heirs, from a tax perspective, from an asset protection perspective, from an administrative perspective, as far as, when someone does pass away, what are the laws in all of these different states where there is an interest regarding the passing of that asset from one generation to the next. So this is something you got to look at and figure out, and to be able to put together a really comprehensive plan that is making sure you're taking care of the family. And so it's not that we ourselves practice law in all of these states. You're not going to be able to find any attorney who's capable of doing that. But what we do is we step in, we come up with a comprehensive plan, and then we, from our own network, work with attorneys in those local jurisdictions as co-counsel to make sure that we are doing all of the planning according to the various jurisdictions that we're working in. And then kind of one of the last pieces of all of this is we practice law in South Dakota, and South Dakota is recognized as being the premier trust jurisdiction in the U.S. because of its asset protection laws, its tax laws, privacy laws, its ability to do dynasty trusts there. And so there's a lot of flexibility in South Dakota that maybe a client in Texas or California or New York or Florida or wherever it may be would want to take advantage of. Either way, we're putting together a plan that makes the most sense given all these various factors.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense with the modern family. Everyone's so spread out these days. So yeah, it makes a ton of sense there. So are all attorneys doing multi-jurisdictional estate planning?
No, they're not. And to your point, it's just a modern approach to a client's needs. And so historically, most attorneys have just focused on, where they located or where the client's located. And that's typically where the attorney's located, right? And so because of kind of this, I don't want to, I mean, maybe this is the right word for it, antiquated way of practicing law. Not all attorneys are doing this. And it's certainly something you don't learn in law school. It's something that you just get exposed to. And I think we'll talk about that more here in a second. But it isn't something that all attorneys are doing. And, you can make, if you focus on that one jurisdiction, you are putting together a legally valid plan. However, it just may not be the most advantageous plan for the modern family, the modern circumstances, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone, that owns assets in a couple to a few different jurisdictions, do they need multi-jurisdictional estate planning? Is this for everyone in that
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah, so really great question. And the short answer is yes. Now, what that plan ends up looking like could differ from situation to situation. At the very least, you need to be looking at the laws of those various jurisdictions where maybe mom and dad have, they have real estate, they have rental properties in one state, or they have, a vacation home in another state or something like that. You got to figure out at least how those particular jurisdictions allow for someone to pass. Basically, are you going to have to go through an estate administration process? Do we need to use a revocable living trust to avoid probate? That's like the simplest thing. But, we're trying to step it up even more and look at, tax issues, asset protection issues. But most basic level, yeah, you have to at least look at those other jurisdictions to figure out what you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes a ton of sense there. So how did you get into this area of practice?
I wish I could tell you that it was a very linear path to this, but it wasn't. And so my background, in addition to working for boutique estate planning law firms, my background includes working in public accounting, and I was in public accounting for 6 years. Worked for Ernst and Young, and I was in two specialty groups with EY. And the first one focused on international tax planning, and all of our clients were businesses, mostly Fortune 100 businesses, who had employees who were traveling throughout the world for international assignments, or maybe executives who were traveling throughout the world. And so, in that type of situation, you're going to end up with U.S. tax reporting and compliance issues, as well as all these other countries that you're touching down in, spending time in, working in, living in, playing in, whatever it may be. So we were doing all the planning domestically as well as internationally, and then working with our colleagues in other countries and coordinating all of this planning to make sure that the client's getting served properly, right? So that was one aspect of it. And then another aspect of what I did was more focused on the corporate taxation issues, but it was done at the state and local level. And so it was multi-jurisdictional. Most people don't realize this, but for a company, for a business that is in more than one state, usually their largest tax liability is not federal income tax. It's going to be property tax, sales and use tax, employment tax, those state and local tax issues. And I've read different figures about this, but I've read there's around 8,000 or even 10,000 tax jurisdictions within the US. So I got exposed to this world of working in multiple jurisdictions. And then when I left public accounting and went back into the practice of law, I worked for a practice that had clients throughout the country for a variety of different reasons. And so we were always looking to do some type of multi-jurisdictional planning, just because our clients were everywhere. We were working with local counsel in these jurisdictions where we weren't located. And so it was really public accounting that gave me that background and kind of gave me this philosophy of always, what is the most advantageous jurisdiction for a client?
It's awesome. A lot of really good information. Thank you. It's fantastic. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. In the meantime, check us out at stuartgreenlaw.com.